Hello everyone, I am doing a tutorial series on the basics of C#, and we're starting from the ground floor, so great for new people who are just beginning to learn C#. Alright, so this website, which is Microsoft's Visual Studio developer tools essentially, what all these things are, but you don't need to make it too complicated. We just want Visual Studio IDE. And then when you hover over download for Windows, just Community 2017. And then you have to go through the whole install process where you save this executable and then to wherever. And then you're just going to double click it, maybe run as administrator. And it'll walk you through the installation process. Now, we're not going to do anything that's going to require specific, installation settings. We're just going to do basic stuff. So just do whatever the default is. Should be fine. All right. So let's go ahead and start a new project. As you can see, we are on the opening screen. So when you open it up, Visual Studio, this is what you're going to see. And over here in this little section, there's new project. Now, you can click on these little links here, which are, it's fine basically. But I'm just going to click Create New Project and select from this next screen that comes up because those are essentially just hot links to whatever these are, so it doesn't really matter. And what we want is we're just going to go with a console application for now. Now we're going to go ahead and go with .NET Framework. .NET Core is newer, and there's a lot of stuff that I would probably want to brush up on before doing a tutorial in .NET Core because they're essentially a little bit different. So we can call this console app story app because we're going to do a text-based game in it because I like games. And I think it's more interesting than just doing some math or something like that. Okay. So wait a few seconds here. All right, it's opened up. I'm going to go ahead and zoom this by clicking Control and Zoom wheel so that the text is a bit larger for people on screen. All right, so at the top you have this little Start button. If I click it, it'll run the application, but there is no code for this application right now. So the app will open, and then the app will close. Okay, it's open, now closed, and now go, okay, well, why did the app close? Well, because there were no parameters that we set. There was no instructions that we've set for it to run. So what does that mean? It means that it runs out of things to do and it closes. So we're going to add a line of code. Console.write line. And we're going to say, welcome to your personal interactive adventure. All right. And then the next line, we're going to do console.readLine, which is to say we want to wait for user input. All right, now we start it. All right, now it doesn't close. And it says, welcome to your personal interactive adventure, because we're going to create one. Because I figure that'd be a good place to start. All right, now let's imagine we type some stuff. We hit enter. Well, now it closes because readline is now gone. So let's add some stuff. So we're going to add just a regular line here to give spacing. And then we'll add a line that says, what is your name? So that you can, I don't know, start a new game. And then down here we have this read line. Well, in order for the read line to do anything, we actually need to make it so that we can grab whatever you type in and put it back. So it's going to be a string. and then this is name equals. Now I'll explain what's happening here. So we got a couple of write lines, which is essentially just putting text on the screen in the console app. And then we have a variable, and this variable is of type string, which means it's text. That's the easy way to understand it. The more complicated way is to say that it is an array of individual binary characters. There's 256 of them. You can look it up. It's ASCII. Whatever. There's a lot of different complicated stuff like Unicode or random different encodings and stuff like that. But that's not important. At the moment, it is merely text. You need to think of it as text. This equal sign. It is saying that this text variable has a value of console.readline. So whatever you type in this readline is that value. So now we can do console.writeLine and then console.writeLine again. So we have a little bit of spacing, and we can say hello and then space. So there's a little bit of space in between plus name. All right, so let's go ahead and run that. It says, welcome to your personal interactive adventure. What is your name? Brandon. Enter. Oops. One thing we're missing. Console.readline. Because once again, if you don't have a read line at the end, it's just going to exit because it's got nothing else to do. We can address that later, but whatever. And it says hello. So it knows who I am now. All right. So the venture is now personal, apparently. All right. So far, we've covered string variables and using the console. So we could say, well, couldn't we just create an entire adventure here? Well, not precisely, because when there comes to a decision, it needs to have conditional statements. It needs to be either this happens or this happens, instead of it just being a linear progression. So it needs to be something like, well, maybe it asks a question. It says console.writeLine. You find yourself in a forest for some reason. Did I spell, is it forest? Anyways, you'll find that programmers do not have good spelling. I think for some reason that this is just one R and that I'm being stupid. Okay. What do you do? And then you could have something like console.writeLine, and then option 1. Climb a tree. All right. So, oops, we missed a semicolon. Very important. This is something that I should probably cover as well. This is the semicolon. It means that your command has ended, essentially. That's the easy way to think about it. So this is a sort of a command or a function that's being called. This is the parameters of which this function will be executed, which is essentially just text. I don't want to make this too complicated. Basically, this little semicolon says that's the end of the statement. That's basically what it says. It says, stop looking for new instructions, find the next instruction. Stop looking for more details, find the next instruction, etc., etc. So when I miss the semicolon there, you'll see that it says, oh, something's wrong here. Okay, well, something is wrong. Let's add a semicolon. All right. No. We need another option. Let's see here. So you can climb a tree, or you can, let's see, what's another good option? Walk north. All right, cool. Not very creative, but those are the two options right now. Okay. So we have our introduction. We actually don't want this read line here because it's just going to essentially add a pause where that doesn't make sense for it to be. The read line should really be down here. And then we'll say this is option 2. And then we'll have a string option equals console.read line so that we can find out what you choose. And then let's see. Now for a little bit more complication, what we want to do is say, hey, what option was picked? If it was one option, then do this. If it was a different option, then do something else. So we'll say if opt dot contains 1, else. All right. So what is happening here? So you might be wondering, why do you say dot contains? Well, first of all, I don't know necessarily what someone's going to write here. They could write 1. They could write option 1. They could write climb a tree. They could write climb. They could write walk. So you need to be able to say, well, if it's option 1 or if it's 1, still do the same thing. So that's why we have contains. It just means that the one value exists inside whatever answer they give. Okay. We'll worry about adding things like checking to say if they say climb later, but I don't want to overcomplicate this. So if option is 1, so if this is the option that's selected right here, if this is the option that's selected, you climb a tree. Okay. Then something happens. So we go console.writeLine. Console.writeLine. All right. So what happens? So you climb a tree. Let's see. You slip and fall and break your neck because this is not a very creative adventure. All right. Console.writeLine. You have died. Cool. That was easy. All right. Otherwise, I'm just going to control copy and then control V. So control C, control V. And then we're going to say if you walk north, you come to the edge of a river. Okay. Now we'll remove the you have died. Okay. And then console.readLine so that we can pause so that it doesn't immediately close on us. All right. So let's run this. Okay, my name's Brandon. All right. So what option do I want to take? So for instance, if we put in option, or rather any text, and then a 1, it'll say you've died. All right. Now, if I say just 1, it'll say, yep, you've died. Okay. Now what happens if I write anything else than that? Okay. Since there's only 2 options, if I write anything else that doesn't have a 1 in it, it'll just say you come to the edge of a river. So if I say, let's say I say be walk. Oh, you come to the edge of the river. Why? Because there's no 1 in it. There's no 1. What happens if you say climb? Well, if I say climb, there's no 1 in it, so it'll still say I come to the edge of the river, but we don't want that. We want it to be so that if you pick this option, like you say climb, then what happens is, well, you slip and fall and you break your neck and you die. Wait, I missed a piece. And break your neck. Jeez. Apparently, I'm very bad at remembering details and writing them down. All right. So, what we need here is another if statement. We need to say if this is, if this condition is met, if there's a 1, or if a different condition is met. And so what we need to do is an or statement. So what is or? This is or. It's double parallel lines, which is essentially the same. It's shift, whatever that slash key is. I think that's a /. No, that's, is this / or is it backslash? I think that's backslash because you read left to right, so that'd be backslash. Okay. So we can say or opt.contains. Now, why are we using contains again? Because we want it to be climb a tree, climb anything, right? Climb. Okay. All right. Let's try this again. Now we say, put in a random name, climb. Oh, it realized that we're doing the correct action. It goes, okay, climb. Okay, but here's the problem. What happens if I say climb with, well, it doesn't recognize that, all capitals, because it's case sensitive. So in order to make it so that we don't have to worry about the case, now of course for 1 you don't have to care because there's no such thing as a capital 1, but for this we want to go dot to lower, which means that we are taking this variable, we are converting it into a lower version, which means lowercase, of this version, which means it will always be processed as lowercase. And so this case sensitive check here is lowercase. And so if we convert this to lowercase and then do the check, well, it's always lowercase. So you can just say anything for your name and then say climb in all caps, and it'll still realize that you're trying to climb. You can do this over and you can say climb a tree. So you say climb, random capitalization, a tree. And it realizes that you mean climb a tree. All right, cool. So this is just essentially instruction 1. Essentially what it's saying, okay, so let's go over this again. This static void main, this is essentially the starting parameters. So it's a method. It's the main method in the class program. So it is the initial, this is the initial thing that's called. It's the initial actions that are taken in the program is here. We'll get into other stuff later, like adding classes and different methods. But for now, all you need to know is that this is the main method. This is the method that runs when the program runs. Or you can call it a function. JavaScript people like to call them functions. C# methods, it doesn't matter. That's just lingo. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So we have a console write line. What we're saying is that write some text down. Okay, we specify the text. These little double quotes here indicates that there's a text value there. If I was to replace this with 4 times 5 and run it, you would get 20, because that would be a mathematical calculation. That would not be a text argument that we're doing. So welcome. Well, I'll just do Control Z to get back to where we were. But the point I'm trying to make is you write a line. This line is text. We know that it's text because it's inside double quotes or quotes. We have a semicolon here at the end of this call that exists inside of this function's parameters. Semicolon indicates that we are done with this command, console.writeLine. The next line, we give a little bit of spacing. Once again, we have a semicolon to indicate that we've finished that, etc., etc. Then we have readLine. ReadLine is essentially the program reading what you type in and saving it to a variable name, which we can access later, which we do here, in order to essentially utilize it. All right, then we go through this just normal stuff here, and we have another read line with a different string. And then we say, okay, here's the value that was typed in. Let's assess it. Let's say if there's a 1 in it, do this, or if there is climb. And we set this to a lowercase so that it's case insensitive, because it was case sensitive before and that caused problems. Then we have an action of what happens. Now we're in another if statement, and we say, okay, well, we're in the else statement, which is to say if anything, if it does not contain this, and it does, or it does not contain climb, then we'll execute this action. So this else statement is whatever happens if this if statement fails to run. And anyways, so this is just saying, here's the next step in progression. Okay. And this read line is just so the program doesn't exit as soon as it's done, so we can actually take a look at it. I think this is probably a sufficient amount to go in tutorial number 1. So I'll upload this, and then we'll see what I decide to do for the next part. There's a lot of different stuff I need to cover. I gotta think about it. All right, thanks for watching, and show your support by leaving a like. It just lets me know that this is something worth continuing. Anyways, I will see you all later in the next video.